And the first item on the agenda is to consider approving the minutes of the meeting held January 8th.
I'll second.
I didn't make a motion.
Yes, yes.
You can go.
I'll make the motion. And I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? The second item is to consider canceling a contract with the town of Sydney for use of a communications tower. Linda, you wanna?
Yeah, I can explain that. As you recall, we had a couple of Sydney Select Board members here at an earlier meeting, and they explained to us the communications issues that they were having with the use of our tower, that under an agreement that had begun in the fall of 2011. They have since made other arrangements to attempt to improve their service, and they wish to be released from the agreement, the 5-year agreement that they inked with us in 2011. I had prepared a list of payments that were due under the terms of what was left of the agreement at the time we spoke with them, and there was about $3,420 that would have been coming to the town of Oakland from Sydney over the remaining term of that contract. And as you know, you recall the discussion with the Sydney selectmen the night that they were here, and received recently a letter from the town of Sydney dated January 6th, and they're indicating that they have voted to discontinue the contract, and with the letter they sent a check for $1,500. I thought that it would be better if you determined the town of Oakland's response to this matter rather than prior to my cashing the check. So I can leave it at that. This has come, and as far as they're concerned, I think they would hope that the matter is finished, but I thought you might like to have the final word on that.
No?
I guess just to recap, and I'm not sure exactly where we are, I know when they were here that night, there was discussion, there was nothing ever agreed, and we just asked them what they thought, and they really wouldn't give us any indication of their personal thoughts. And they said they were going back to their group to have further discussion. At the next meeting, we talked and said that, really, this isn't right for them to, even request that we cancel a contract. It was a contract that was entered into by both sides, knowing whatever we knew at the time. And I think we congratulated them for looking out for the safety of Sydney and going with a better tower if that was what was appropriate, but that still didn't alleviate the obligation to continue or to pay their part of the contract going forward. And, again, we had discussion. I think people have heard from a variety of others saying that, this is Sydney's obligation. And I guess, it's been pretty quiet for I don't know how long. We haven't heard back from them. There was no discussion, and I guess this letter almost makes it seem like, as we discussed, well, we discussed it, but they, we had talked about half. I don't know if a dollar figure ever came up. And it would have been nice, I think, if they had contacted us, so we discussed it, we'd like to come up with a compromise as opposed to just sending us a check and saying, we're not, you're in contract years.
That's the way I remember it too, that we discussed, half, and we discussed 1,500, but there was no consideration made that we would accept either of those ideas. We just said that those were different ideas that possibly could happen. We're talking about item 2, Sydney contract.
Exactly what you're saying.
That's the way I remember it also, Don. Anybody else?
I concur.
What's your thought on it?
We just reminiscent
Yeah.
about what we
We're just trying to
believe
our
our
We didn't
position
agree.
was.
We're trying to
We didn't
find,
agree that we said we'd do that. We said that, that was
that was something that
a
was,
proposal, was a
It wasn't a
statement.
proposal, it was
Wasn't
just-
even a proposal, it was a statement.
and I think you said, would you guys consider something, not as a formal position that the board ever took.
Right.
Right, that's what, we all seem to remember the same thing, that was a discussion we had, but no decision made that we would accept that.
Right.
was looking through here to see if I still had that contract with me, I'm not sure I have. Did their contract seem to be with us or with Mushrow? I mean, it was
It was a
solid
joint,
both.
it was,
Joint, yeah.
all three names were on the sheet.
Right.
Yeah.
And the first question that came to my mind when I read my agenda was, I hope Peter hasn't cashed that check. And it was nice to see you had it in your hand tonight, Peter.
It's right here. Did something right, huh?
I guess that summarizes my
Pretty.
thoughts. I was hoping that hadn't been cashed.
No.
I mean, my thought when I heard about it, was one of the people from Sydney had said that, you know, we wrote you out a check for $1,500, and the person said, geez, it was a pretty good idea, because if we went to the court and went to the lawyers, then we'd lose anyway. And I said, geez, I didn't know Peter had agreed on that, and that was my statement to him, and I said, I don't think Peter would have agreed on that. And I just don't think it's good business to be writing, this is what we're doing, that's what you're gonna take, good day, good luck, good riddance, and that's just kind of.
I know we did discuss different values that night,
Right.
maybe that we can do, and I've heard from some of our citizens since then that that would be a very bad idea for us to do, to even consider paying part of this for them.
Right.
And I think Dawn has mentioned that too, in our last meeting, that, you know, we shouldn't be covering their bills.
So then what do you want to do on it?
Has there been any conversation with our lawyer as to what our rights are?
No. That would cost money,
Yeah,
and, so the amounts.
this is gonna cost us money too. if we
Well,
go with
the
this.
amounts involved are such that I didn't wanna start paying a lawyer, and wind up owing him more than, you know, the matter itself. But, certainly we can do that. If the council would like some legal advice, I'd be happy to get exactly what you'd like to know, in letter form or on a call. But no, I haven't done that, for the reason I just stated.
Do you think MMA would give any advice on an issue like this where it
No.
affects two different towns?
No,
More so.
especially not where they're both members. They would not wanna advise one member against the other.
Yeah, that's what I was
They
thinking.
don't get into the particulars very much. They're into general things, you know,
Right.
like, is it legal, you know, to do blah, 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 blah. What does the law say on something? But to get into a matter of dispute between two towns, they'd be very reluctant to even touch it.
I would suggest that we simply hold the check. We have correspondence, maybe a direct phone call saying that we've never discussed, sat down and negotiated, or we threw out a lot of possibilities at a meeting, never had a response, never had any communication. And it's still our intent that Sydney should be paying the full amount. And just see what they say.
I wonder what a letter from a lawyer would cost to say, here, the town of Oakland wishes to receive the rest of their money. They have brought this to my attention, we need to be paid the rest of the money, or we'll take further legal action. A letter's gonna cost you $200 for the 2 hours, right? Go from there.
I wonder if it would be cheaper to start out with
Right.
Peter
And I understand
doing,
that too.
you know, to
You know.
start for the first, you know, step one maybe without spending any
Right.
money and,
And I think Peter can put in a letter, you know, a lease is a binding document between all parties who have signed it. We have no doubt that this would be ruled in our favor should it ever go through the legal channels. We don't wanna do that, we just want to be made good on what we had all agreed to in whatever date it was.
would you suggest sending the check back with the letter?
No, I would
for
just,
this time?
I would
or-
just say we're holding the check pending your your decision.
Is that a motion?
I guess that's the discussion. I guess the motion would be that Peter draft a letter to the town of Sydney saying that we're not accepting their offer on face value. There needs to be discussion, and again, I don't wanna put the whole wording there, but we're rejecting their offer on face value. Follow-up, discussion needs to ensue.
I'd second that motion, and I might add though that you keep Mr. Mushrow informed of what we have done by copying him on the letter or whatever.
Happy to do that. And, would it sound consistent with what you just said, to say that we will hold this check pending receipt of the remainder?
Yeah,
Yes.
good place to start, I think.
Okay. Happy to do that. That was a unanimous
Motion's
vote,
made
wasn't it?
and seconded, all in favor?
Fine, yeah.
I
And
just-
the
I
letter
just
will
wanna-
include, that at the direction of the Oakland Town Council, which voted unanimously,
Right.
so that they understand that the council is speaking. Okay. Yep.
Next item is the sign the sewer commitment.
I have the commitment here.
When you take any action, just sign.
Just, I don't think it has been signed.
Somewhere too?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Oh, good,
It's very fake.
There you go.
Is that what, I wondered how you wanted to do it.
Won't do that one. How are you? Your time, sorry.
Was there something you
No, we're
wanted
gonna
to
bring it
say?
up and put it on a future meeting thing,
Okay, okay,
so we can
okay,
have the proper people here.
okay. I have, a fair amount of material for you tonight under the manager's report, so, I begin with, a letter that we received from, RSU 18 with regards to, a board of directors vacancy. As you probably know, Emily Shaw, who won election in November, was scheduled to begin her term July 1st, 2014, for the remainder of Donna Doucette's term. Emily was fortunate enough to land a job that will require her to leave town. And I guess it's a great position, she couldn't refuse it, but she's going to be leaving Oakland. So she's not going to qualify for the office to which she was elected. So that presented at least a question as to making sure that our process going forward was absolutely correct. Remembering that Mary Ann Lamar, who you had appointed to the interim vacancy, ran successfully in November for the 3-year seat, whose service will begin July 1st. So the vacancy will then be for the remainder of Donna Doucette's term. And you have another opportunity to select someone for that vacancy, for someone to begin service July 1st. So between now and July 1st, you have an opportunity to read this letter and digest it to your satisfaction, and hopefully I've just explained everything correctly. Jan, did what I said sound correct to you?
it is.
So there's quite a lot to it, but if you sort of imagine the positions and the slots and the people moving through them, it's a little easier for me to visualize where the openings lie. And just to finish my thought, and Dawn wishes to get in it, but as you recall, you've interviewed 3, and I think all 3 of the ones you interviewed, you made good impressions. So it might be that you could select from those names pending their continued interest, or you could restart the process completely and go through the process that we went through earlier with letting people know and soliciting names and going through another interview process. But giving the impressions that the earlier candidates made, it seems as though that part of the work has been done for you, unless you wish to revisit it.
Timing, and maybe I missed something in the paperwork. Mary Ann has to resign her position that she's now holding.
The way the law is, it occurs automatically.
'cause I
She-
thought
She's
it-
automatically, she can only hold one office
Right,
or the
but
other.
it sounded to me like she had to resign from her continuing position and accept the other position.
Well, the way the letter reads is that you can assume that she would accept the position that she ran and was elected for.
But I just thought I
Which-
saw something that said it actually.
She can only
has
fill
to be-
one, but not
Right,
both.
but I just thought there had to be an actual
A
resignation.
letter perhaps?
And that resignation, I guess, my thought would be she'd resign at some day in the near future, effective July, whatever the starting date is. And then as soon as we had that letter of resignation, then we could then nominate the one, like you said, one of the other two people to fill that slot starting July, because they wouldn't fill it immediately, they'd fill it when her resignation takes effect. And I'm sure she wants to stay on until July first, so I think we have to have a letter saying, I'm going to resign as of July first, so that we officially have the ability to appoint somebody to her slot starting July first. And then I would feel no problem with, I know we had two candidates, I guess the issue is gonna be, once we have a resignation, or a letter saying there's gonna be a resignation, then we contact those two to see if they're still interested, or we contact just one of them to see if he, because they're both he's, is still interested, and then we could just appoint him starting as of July first. So I think we have to have something substantial from her and saying it's gonna be on July first as opposed to immediately. And then we can't act on hiring or appointing a new one until we have that, and that also can be on July first.
About halfway through the next to last paragraph, it says she will have to resign one position or the other. So, now, we didn't have anybody else run for election this time other than Emily and Mary Ann, did we?
Those were both uncontested.
Uncontested.
Right. So anyway, we have to run with one director short until July.
No, she
No.
can
No.
stay on till July.
She's still
Mary Ann
filling
stays on till
the
July.
interim vacancy that you appointed her
Oh, yeah,
to
and then she's,
Then
until
she
then.
resigns as of that date, and then we have somebody.
okay, cause that's
Because
Doty's turn,
Emily's not
Doty's
in.
still
She's
on
taking
until
Doty's
July.
turn,
Okay.
and then what's left of
Yeah.
Donna's is.
So we're not one down,
No,
No,
so there's, cause
Right.
Doty's still on until July.
right.
And I guess we could do one of two things, we could put feelers out to see if either of those two are interested, because neither of them ran, so that might give us a little bit of a worry. Or do we just wait for her letter, ask her to write a letter as soon as possible, so we can start the process and hopefully follow those, see if one's interested, and go from there.
Kelly?
Just, maybe a bizarre suggestion, would it be worth asking Doty if she'd be willing to serve in that vacancy from July until the election in November? Instead of having somebody come in for a few months?
It would be a few months,
It would be,
there's still, what, 2 years left in her term?
Yeah, to the
Ca- No,
because
For 1
Mary Ann
year.
takes Doty's place, right?
but see, nobody takes office, you
Donna's
elect
ter-
them in November, but they don't take office
Till
until
next-
July. That had to be voted on that way.
Hmm.
So it's at least a year, if Donna's position ends at that point.
Maybe Doty.
Oh, I
was-
get what you're saying, but you would elect somebody new in November, that would take the position in July, gotcha.
So
Sorry.
maybe
That's
Doty
not-
can fill in until that
it's
point.
a year,
Yeah, it would be
So
1
Doty
year,
would
July
be
to
1
July,
year.
one
Right.
year.
yeah.
And Doty might be willing to
Do
stay
that.
on for a year.
I'm just trying to think transition wise, what might be the easiest thing, that's all. For continuity.
So we have to get ahold of Mary Ann.
Yeah.
Tell her, you know.
I
so she
I can
understands
do
this.
that.
So
I
she
can ask
understands
the
that.
other two
Right.
if they're interested, and ask Doty if she'd consider. Would you want to go that far, or do you want to return to the ones that said they were interested?
I would think a question to Doty
I
first
think
would
it'd
be
be good.
reasonable.
Yeah.
And I can bring you all of that information.
You know, she's up to speed already, so she's all ready to, be a full-time director, and she's on some of the committees, and,
And it's just for the 1 year.
there'll only be 1 year. There'll only be 1 year left after July
July.
on Donna's term.
Yes, until June of 2015.
Okay, so it'll be 1 extra year
Mhm.
And then somebody would be elected
in November.
in November to take that slot.
I guess I would suggest that that would be your first, your second call. First one would be to Mary Ann, and the
Okay.
second one to Doty to see if she's interested in staying on to fill that term.
Okay, that's how we'll do it.
And if that, we don't get any success there, we'll go to
Then
Plan
we
B.
have the third call, third and fourth calls to make.
And I guess before we make the third and fourth call, we might wanna discuss if we just want to, if there was a second choice, or do we wanna have the two of them come back
Yeah.
and have us make a decision at that point?
I'd be hoping that only one was interested. Of the two.
Well, I guess I'd rather ask the one we prefer and not go through have them interview again if they both are interested.
Well, let me make calls 1 and 2, and you
Yeah,
can
that's
determine
fine.
what
We
happens
got
after
time.
that.
Yep.
You can determine how to handle it
Waste of
after
July.
that. It may need to go no further. Let's see now. You should have something in your packet that looks like this, pay rate comparison. I think this is the information that you asked us for, at least the stuff that's put together summarizes the information that you asked us for. The most recent Maine Municipal Association salary survey has been published. And I think we got the book about the first day that they were available. And what you will see is of the ones that they survey, they've covered most of our positions with the ones that they survey. And you can look at a sheet that looks sort of like this. And the positions are listed there by size of communities. And you can see the number of responses they got, all from Maine. This is Maine data. From communities in the various sizes. Oakland with a population of 6,000, you can see where that fits and how many responses. We're in
Bless you.
a size community that gets a pretty good number of responses, so that's kind of good. And then you can see what the average rates are for those. The book that contains all the data from which these charts are made is open, so if you were interested in a specific, what does O pay the public works director, or of the towns that participate, not all of them do, but of the ones that do, you can look up and see exactly what any town that does participate pays their public works guy, or their town manager, or the town clerk. It's all listed there. And then these sheets are made from the responses that they get, and I'm just saying that the book's about that thick, allows you to drill down into that if you're so inclined. And then what Doug did for us was to simply list the Oakland positions that are in the survey, and I think there's 2 or 3 positions that we have in Oakland that they don't survey, with maybe for one reason or another. But we compared that with the average for communities our size, so that you can see basically what Oakland's municipal salaries look like compared to communities in the same population range. And generally speaking, Oakland is slightly lower than the average. There are, on this list of 20 some odd, there are 2 or 3 positions that are slightly over the average, and the rest of them are all beneath the average. So the newspaper guy asked about this, and he said, so that's a good thing, right? And I said, well, that's whether you're paying or whether you're receiving. It's good if you're paying, and it's bad if you're receiving. So, but that's the reality. So I hope this is the information that you asked us for. It is, I think, enough information to make some meaningful comparisons. And I don't know how we could do much better for you without spending an enormous amount of time. So that's what we came up with in response to your request. We don't need any decisions tonight. That's for your consideration and review.
I guess I would suggest that cover sheet ought to go to the budget and advisory for discussions when we get into the budget thing, maybe. I don't know how they are.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's a good sheet to look at while we're discussing things.
And it might be a value, the whole.
Well, whatever, I didn't know if you thought they didn't want the whole thing or just the cover sheet, but.
Okay.
whatever, it doesn't matter, as long as they get the information.
Okay, that's good, good guidance, thank you. Let me see, there had been a question about the building alarms, and so we got, I got a report made from Dean Nichols, who is with Maine Security, and actually there was quite a little list there that I hope you had a chance to look at of the systems that we have. Some of them are fire only, some of them are burglar and fire, but there are 6 locations that are protected. The costs of each one are listed there for you, and the features of each one are listed there for you. So probably just assume we'll have that circulate to the criminal element that exists wherever people happen to be, but that's for you to examine and answer to your request for information.
I have a question, Peter. Go ahead.
No, go
Finish
ahead,
your
Mike.
question. I don't see anything there for Public Works. Shouldn't there be something there that in case somebody broke into garage and started getting their trucks out, or any of the equipment, and, you know, raising game with it, running into stuff? Lesser things have happened.
That's a question where I'm all ears. You know, that's a cost we don't currely bear.
I would think there
You
should
could
be
certainly
something
pay
to
need
indicate
to
that there's
protect
been
and improve
entry.
security anywhere and everywhere. If that is something you'd like to see, we could pursue that.
Well, that's my feeling, there should be something at Public Works where it sits down out of the way, and the only one watching it's Kelly.
I don't know if you'd get much better than Kelly.
No, I'm sure,
She's had her hands full lately.
but I was.
I can look
just-
into that and I can get a price for that. How would that be?
Thank you.
Additionally, does our insurance reflect, many times if you have a variety of these types of alarm systems, your insurance is reduced, you get a 10% discount or whatever?
Let me find that out.
Yeah, and I guess the other part of it would be are there other areas that we could do better on insurance if we had, for example, in the public library, we have best support, and I would hope that the insurance reflects that. So I guess whatever the insurance agent can tell us on how important this is in our rates, and are there ways we could improve our rates if we did better with the alarms?
Good question.
And I wondered about the town office here, it doesn't mention low temperature here at the town office, and this building is unoccupied like this last weekend, 3 days, right? During extremely cold weather, and I was wondering if we ought to consider adding temperature to this building, if it isn't, because some of the buildings have low temperature, but this one, it doesn't list it, and another question was, the public library, it looks like they got 2 systems that are, the fire one is quite high, and I don't know, maybe that's to cover, maybe they maintain the alarms and things too, you know, the indicators. I don't know what they do for that money on that fire alarm system, whether they take some responsibility for the sensors or to be that high, or. So maybe, you know, just maybe could look into that a little bit more sometime and see if.
Maybe we should be doing them together. Maybe there could be one system.
Yeah, well, that's what I wondered, if it's 2 separate systems, and why the fire isn't, because on the other ones, the fire is included with some other things, and I didn't know what was separate on that building that makes it different.
Okay.
You know, the sewer building is checked every day, right? Somebody's there every day, aren't they, on,
Yes.
on that one? So.
Mhm. All right, good, thank you. There's some things I can follow up on here, thanks. Let's see, there is a reminder in your packet from RSU 18 that they're having their annual governance supper meeting coming up. That's coming right up. Wednesday, January 29th at 6 p.m. This one is going to be in the board meeting room at the superintendent's office. That's different. I think we've been at the middle school.
Before.
So this year they're having it at the super's office. But generally they ask how many plan to attend. Does anyone know at this point?